Have you ever eaten an ice cream cone on a hot day? What happens if you don't eat your ice cream quickly enough? Well, your ice cream probably melts in the heat. Heat can cause things to melt, like ice. Today's read aloud is called Daedalus and Icarus. Before we begin, let's take a look at 2 vocabulary words. Can you say the word genius with me 3 times, please? Genius, genius, genius. Today's myth is about a very brilliant man a genius. His name was Daedalus. A genius is a very smart or talented or creative person. Daedalus was the genius who created the labyrinth, home to the Minotaur. Our second word for the day is currents. Say that word with me 3 times, please. Currents, currents, currents. In today's myth, Daedalus studies the birds to see how they use the currents of air to fly. Currents are strong flows of air or water that move in a certain direction. Listen carefully to today's read aloud for a problem in today's myth that is caused by something melting. This is the story of a very brilliant man, a genius whose name was Daedalus. He was able to look at a problem and think on it until an answer came to him. Once, however, Daedalus faced a challenge he wished he did not have to solve. King Minos of Crete was upset with Daedalus for helping the young hero, Prince Theseus, defeat the Minotaur and escape from Crete with Minos' daughter, Princess Ariadne. The king had no proof that Daedalus had helped them, but he believed that only Daedalus was smart enough to have done it, since he also created the labyrinth. So King Minos announced, "Daedalus, you helped them escape, so now I will lock you up in turn. And since there were 2 of you responsible for their escape, one of whom was my own daughter, you shall share your imprisonment with your son Icarus." The king was too smart to lock Daedalus up in a regular prison because he feared the genius might escape. He commanded, "Guards, lock Daedalus and Icarus up in the great stone tower that overlooks the ocean cliffs. There is only 1 window at the top of the tower and 1 door at the bottom, which we will lock. Even if they escape through the window, there is nothing below them but sharp rocks and raging ocean tides." So the father and son were locked away. Twice a day soldiers unlocked the door to deliver food or take away dishes. On one of those occasions, Daedalus sent a message by the soldiers to King Minos. "If we must live out our lives here, at least give us some books to read and some candles by which to read them after dark." Minos saw no harm in that and agreed. But he should have known better, for Daedalus had a plan. He and Icarus would set breadcrumbs on the windowsill of the tower's high window to attract the seabirds. Over a period of months, the birds lost their fear of Daedalus and his son and would allow the 2 men to pick them up. The father and son began to pluck feathers from their wings, though not so many as would hurt the birds or keep them from flying. He and Icarus hid the feathers under their beds, along with some wax from each of the candles the soldiers brought, until, after several years, Daedalus said to his son, "Now we have what we need in order to escape." Daedalus began to unravel threads from the blankets in their tower room. Using the flames of the candles for heat, he melted and shaped the wax that they had saved. Then he inserted the feathers that they had hidden and tied everything all up with thread. Icarus's eyes lit up. "You are making wings!" Daedalus smiled. If we cannot walk from our prison, then we will fly. Come and hold that candle closer to soften this wax so I can bend it." It took several days to complete the wings, until one morning the sets were ready. Daedalus had carefully studied the movement of the birds, and he knew where the currents of air blew near the sea tower. He carefully taught Icarus what he knew, adding, "We will land at that harbor over there, remove our wings, and then sail away in one of those boats anchored there. By the time King Minos knows we're gone, we will be far from Crete. However, my son, follow me as I ride the winds safely down. If we are not careful, and we fly too high, the sun's heat could melt the wax in our wings and plunge us down into the sea. Our friends the birds need not fear this, but we are only borrowing their skills." "I understand, father," said Icarus. They strapped on their wings and waited for the sun to begin to rise over the sea. Below the tower were dangerous rocks and crashing waves. Daedalus worried that they might not make it. He thought over every detail, and then he told his son, "It is time to regain our freedom. Come." Stepping up to the window, he drew a deep breath and leapt outward, and his wings worked. The air lifted him up and held him. Looking back over his shoulder, he saw his son leap from the tower. Icarus laughed at the sheer joy of flying. Lifting and dipping the tips of his wings, he turned and he swirled, delighting in the wonder of it all. Forgotten in the moment was his father's warning. As Daedalus gracefully glided down toward the harbor, Icarus thought, I wonder if I can make this curve or that curve. He rode the winds higher and higher and farther out over the water. Daedalus looked back for him, but Icarus was not behind him. His eyes filled with fear. "Icarus, come down!" But the boy shouted, "Look, father!" and he continued to do his tricks in the air, until all of a sudden he saw the feathers loosen and drop one by one from his wings. The growing heat from the morning sun was beginning to melt the wax on his wings. Desperately, Icarus tried to turn and follow his path down, but the warming air currents were carrying him higher and higher. The feathers began dropping from his wings, first one at a time, and then in clumps. "Help, father!" But Daedalus could not turn and rise fast enough to help. He could only watch. Too many feathers had fallen out, and his wings could no longer support Icarus. He plummeted down, down, down into the sea. Daedalus wept. He reached the harbor, and he took a boat, and off he sailed to safety.